Hello, and welcome to the CivilTalk Podcast. I'm your host, Tapasio Althouse. If you're new to the podcast, this is where we explore civility and social emotional learning in the modern world, with esteemed guests, expert insights, and practical advice to help people navigate the world. Today, on the CivilTalk Podcast, we are honored to welcome Professor Bill Ryan. Bill is an assistant professor in residence at the University of Connecticut's School of Business who teaches marketing management, digital marketing, and sales management and leadership. He also serves as the academic director for UConn's Professional Sales Leadership Program, where he provides students with hands-on experiential learning opportunities in sales. Before transitioning into academia, Professor Ryan worked in marketing and sales with top Fortune 100 companies. His extensive industry experience combined with his academic expertise truly give him a unique perspective on both the practical and theoretical aspects of business education. We are so excited to hear his thoughts on civility and then some. Welcome to the show, Professor Ryan.
Thank you, Tapasio. It's great to be here today.
Nice to have you. Just want to jump on in. The importance of emotional intelligence. Why do you believe emotional intelligence is a crucial skill set for those pursuing a career in sales management?
Oh, that's a great question and a great way to start off this conversation. It's interesting. I think for the last 2 to 3 years, especially, you hear corporate partners talking about emotional intelligence as really the differentiator in the people that they're looking to hire. And so it's really something that's front and center with companies today, especially in the professional sales world. And when you look at emotional intelligence, that's really a cornerstone where, being able to connect with people and build that trust is, front and center to developing your emotional intelligence. So companies realize it, and those are the folks that they're looking to hire and they're looking to promote within their organizations. And those are the people that they are seeing in their companies today having the most success, those who have, the ability to really show day in and day out a high level of emotional intelligence.
Yeah. How would you define that? I mean, with students and with the kids that you're teaching, I know it's tough at a young age to sort of display those signs of emotional intelligence. As you get older, it's a lot easier to be a proponent of active listening and to have more respect. How do you cross over into teaching these students how to display that right off the bat to these employers?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I think, historically, we would use the term like a person has great soft skills. Mm-hmm. And I think over the years, people have worked hard at kind of defining what are those soft skills. And I think that started to go into communication and their ability to, connect with people. But when you really formalize it and think about it, from an emotional intelligence standpoint, there are different models out there. One that we use is by Goldman, which has been around for quite a long time, and a number of schools and books have been written on it. But we really think of it that way, and that really gets into a person's self-awareness, a person's ability to kind of manage their own emotions and understand how they're coming across to other people. But then it also gets heavy into your social awareness and your ability to build relationships. And that's all about understanding the people that you're working with. And so we've been able to kind of use those kind of pillars, if you will, to start to uncover and make it real for students as to what emotional intelligence really is. And for us, it's not only just letting them know what it's about, but then it's also about trying to practice it in your everyday life. Like a lot of things, you can be aware of something, but until you actually apply it in your life on an ongoing basis, it doesn't really gain traction. So we're really trying to not only make students aware of emotional intelligence and what it is and the components, but then we're trying to help them actually practice it in their daily lives. And so that when they transition into the workforce, especially in sales, but really in any field, they can operate at that higher level of emotional intelligence and in our minds have, success.
Right. In your bio, it mentioned you're the academic director for UConn's Professional Sales Leadership Program, providing hands-on experiential learning opportunities. In CivilTalk, I'm assuming, I know actually, is one of those sort of factors that are helping with that. I'd love to hear your input on how CivilTalk has helped with that, and what your views are on CivilTalk, the app, and what we're doing.
Sure. Love to. I mean, we were really one of the early adopters, if you will, at UConn for CivilTalk. So starting next week, this will be really, I've been using it for 2 years. So going into our 3rd year of using CivilTalk. And it's, it's a great way for students to kind of practice their communication. And while it's an online environment, in sales, but in many disciplines today, a lot of the communications are happening online, not necessarily in person. And I think that, your ability to, once again, connect with people and understand and communicate effectively is really important. So, we've used CivilTalk. We kind of put it into the class throughout the semester. So we tie it to the different topics that we're talking about in class. So if we're talking about, motivation and compensation, if we're talking about building the best teams, if we're talking about leadership, those are all, topics that easily we can tie emotional intelligence in, and then use CivilTalk to really help the students kind of engage with each other and have conversations. And what we like to think about as discourse. So, have them talk about maybe sensitive topic areas, but have a back and forth conversation with other students, and really work on, connecting and hearing other students and what they're saying, and feeling how, understanding how they feel about a topic, and then really engaging them successfully to have, a conversation where it's back and forth and people are actually learning through that communication about a particular topic area, about themselves and about the other person.
Right. Yeah, just a little background also for our listeners who don't know about CivilTalk. Obviously, our podcast is called CivilTalk, but as Professor was saying, if you go on the actual website and you're a part of a course, Professor Ryan will post prompts, right? So one of them will be on trolling, one of them will be on empathy and negotiating, or boundaries, and open discourse one, EI reflection. There's just a huge number of topics that we could talk about, and he will put them on the discourse page, and then students, their job is to respond to the prompts, and then each student has to respond to other students, and then you have emotion tags as well, so you cannot post something without adding an emotion tag to that, which I'd like to dive further into just sort of the emotion tags and the different features that CivilTalk offers, but also aside from CivilTalk, what other resources do you use that really help and integrate social emotional learning and civility? And if they're not, I'm sure they are, but if they're not there, what do you hope to see in the future?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think, along those lines of all those different topics you just mentioned, what we do is we provide the students with reading material, right? So we may supply some articles that we have, on the subject area. We also ask them to go out and use AI to kind of look into the topic and learn about it, kind of in their own way, and then bring that information back to the conversation. So there's different ways. And like I said, there's really, a wide breadth of topics we cover. So some are kind of introductory, like you mentioned, to help them understand, how to actually have good conversations in discourse and in a civil way, right, online. But then we also take it into like specific areas. So in my course, it's sales management. So we talk about sales topics, but other courses will use, topic areas that are relevant to their coursework. So it's really, really can cross any discipline. And then you mentioned some of the, some of the nice features, if you will, of CivilTalk. One you mentioned is like, an emotional, kind of tab. So you can signal to the person you're communicating with how you feel about a particular topic. And I think that's important because sure, you can kind of glean some of that out of how they're writing. But at the same time, it signals, is a person feeling, stressed about a topic? Is a person feeling really strongly about a particular topic, in a positive, or, maybe in feeling sad about something. It's a nice trigger to kind of understand, once again, how the other person is feeling as you engage in these conversations. Another, attribute of CivilTalk that I really like is, any conversation that you engage somebody in. So somebody makes a post about a topic, and if you want to engage them, it's different than, really any other platform where you can just throw in your comments. Here you have to ask the person to have the conversation. So, it's kind of mutually agreed upon that you're going to have this conversation. And that's really important too, because it kind of helps to eliminate people just kind of, trolling and not thinking about what they're going to say and saying what they want and then leaving the conversation. We're really, through Civil Talk, where it's driving people together and having them ongoing conversation versus a kind of one and done. So I think that's another, great feature, that kind of request to have the communication.
Yeah. One thing I really like about, I might be a little biased, but are the open discourse posts, because it's really an opportunity for kids to talk about what they want to talk about. Reading through the forum, you obviously have the points that you have designated on the syllabus, but then reading through, someone will post about not enough, which I read one a while back about not having enough like bike zones or something.
Yeah.
I really love that idea of kids taking the opportunity to just take the reins, and especially doing it in a digital way. So it's on a forum, but doing under the parameters of civility, most kids who don't have the confidence to maybe be in like a student group organizational program or whatever, can post about their thoughts on the school and the community and how they would want to personally change things. And I love seeing the discourse that sort of abounds from that. Some people I love also aren't afraid to be like, hey, this makes me angry, or this pisses me off, and doing it within the vein of civility, I think is really cool. And I haven't really seen it in other college atmospheres. But I'd love to hear your thoughts about, because I only see it through the scope of the website and through the digital means. What's your one-on-one sort of experience with your students?
Yeah, I mean, I think you hit it on the head. That's the real opportunity, is for Civil Talk to really grow organically and let students use it as kind of a platform to, communicate with each other and talk about things that are relevant to them, inside the class, but also outside the class. And I think what, Civil Talk is trying to do is, we're trying to educate students first about how to be civil and how to, communicate effectively online. Because as we all know and have experienced, the current platforms that are out there don't necessarily teach that, if you will. And there's a lot of negativity associated with these different platforms. And many students don't use them anymore because, they know they can't have that conversation with anyone because somebody's going to troll them. Somebody's going to, lean heavily into what they have to say and attack them, if you will. And, that's a big problem. So we're trying to, Civil Talk, I think, has the ability to get around that, and that we're educating students on, one, how to have civil conversations, and then two, the structure of the platform itself, where it's, everyone on there, we know who they are, everyone's authenticated. Two, you have you have to request the conversations, and then when you have those conversations, they're going to be more civil, if you will, and lead to a better outcome. And I definitely believe strongly, based on my, talking to many students over the years and just working at a university, there's clearly an opportunity to have these conversations online. Students want to have them, and it's just a matter of having a platform that they can go to, that they can trust, that they know where if they put their feelings out there, they're going to be heard, and they're going to be able to have these conversations and not be, trolled or attacked by unknown folks. And so I really feel, optimistic that, over time, as Civil Talk rolls out to more, to the broader audience at UConn and also beyond to other universities and the general public, ultimately, that's really what separates it from all these other platforms. So, so I'm pretty optimistic that it will, could have a really big impact on our ability to have these kind of civil conversations online.
Yeah. Have there ever been, getting down to the grittiness, have there been any snafus at all with teaching social emotional learning and civility, a little pushback? Because I know, in the real world, so, I have friends and peers who, when they talk about I guess, emotions to their higher ups, they're kind of pushed aside, you know? How do you sort of prepare students for that? It's like preparing a student for trolling. It's like you're going to encounter trolling if you make any movement on the internet. How do you prepare students who kind of poo-poo civility and social emotional learning and talking about your feelings, because that's a huge issue in this sort of world is, higher ups and big management thinking this is not important.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're absolutely right. It's been definitely something that people have not been allowed to do, which is express their feelings. And so your ability to kind of connect with people and understand them and hear them, and that's paramount, especially in the sales world, in terms of building that relationship and building that trust. So I think those kind of concerns have really given way, and I think we're also, just the general population is aware of the challenges of communicating. There's a call now for civility in politics. I mean, so everything kind of ebbs and flows, and I think we're at that point of inflection where people realize, hey, we do need to be more civil and open, and teaching emotional intelligence is absolutely key to that. I think we can't teach everyone right from day one, but everyone who gets exposure to emotional intelligence and is made aware of how it works and learns how to kind of think about how they're projecting to others and how they're being heard, and doing a better effort of listening, and really active listening, and really trying to understand how other people are feeling and what they're saying. All that is like so central right now. And I think it's, now's the time. And I think people are on board with it. So we're not getting a lot of resistance to this. Students understand it. They've lived it in their virtual worlds, if you will. As teenagers, they've all firsthand or secondhand, multiple times been exposed to these bullying situations and trolling situations. So they know the importance of this. So we don't really get a lot of pushback that it's not relevant. And as I mentioned up front, our corporate partners that we work closely with are all in favor of this.
One question I have, since we are talking about social emotional learning and civility, I'd love to hear what you personally think are the 3 top important, like if you had to only choose 3 important SEL skills, what would be the top 3 for you?
Mm-hmm. I think that's a good question. I think that, there's so much to it, but I think one of the most important things is empathy, right? And really showing that you hear what other people are concerned about. And that, and that happens in the business world all the time, right? In any selling environment, people have objections, people have concerns. And the salesperson who can show empathy and really hear what that person's concerns are, that's huge for like building trust and ultimately building that relationship. I think the other piece of it is really understanding, having that self-awareness, right? Understanding how you are coming across to people. And, it's a hard thing to kind of get a handle on, but it's an awareness thing. It's thinking about, hey, if I, thinking before you talk, right? And thinking before you type an email up, or thinking a little bit before you respond to a text message. So things that we do every day in life, so that we don't regret, what we're communicating to people. And then finally, I think, the other big thing is, I think, working in teams is so critical today in any organization, any discipline. And, it's a challenge. And most companies through research will tell you that, it's one of their big challenges is getting people to work together. And I think that people who are emotionally intelligent, they're coming into those situations being more aware of themselves, more active listener, trying to get to understand the people. They're listening more and doing a little less talking. So I think that piece of it is really, the teamwork piece, and the ability to work effectively in a team is really, one of the benefits of emotional intelligence.
Yeah. It's interesting how that also crosses over into your interpersonal lives too. I mean, you have academia, but also just like your life outside of academia. And I think that there's this really, really close correlation. You can only read so many textbooks, but also, you think about how you can incorporate these, active listening and empathy and having self-awareness, and you really have to make it a lifestyle.
Yeah.
What do you think? What are things that you think could help students outside of academia? Like for me, it's like I need to have good people, like solid. My 3 close friends need to be. I don't have a huge group of friends, but my 3 close friends need to be solid. And that for me helps my social emotional learning. Reliability, right? What do you think are a few things that students and yourself, just in general, have and can incorporate into your life to enhance those social emotional learning qualities?
There's an old saying, like the 24-hour rule. If you get an email from somebody and it's really sets you off, and how you respond, if you were to respond immediately, is one way, and it could work. But if you wait till the next day, guarantee that you will handle that email differently, and usually with less emotion and being more objective. So, so it is an ongoing practice, and we don't believe that anyone becomes like an expert just by taking a class, but we do believe it's like a lifestyle, like you said. So, I think people just have to be its own awareness thing, and I think that's why in kind of the popular press right now, they're talking about civility, and I think that's good because it triggers for all of us to think and try to be a little more civil. But it starts with family. To your point, it starts with like the people you're engaging with, your good friends, the people you're seeing all the time, treating them, with respect, treating them with empathy, trying to, hear and understand how they're feeling about things, including family. I think it starts there. And then that kind of, obviously connects right into work, and doing it at work will take you places and will get you promoted. And so, but it is a lifelong practice. And I think that's why something like CivilTalk, if people were using it, in their kind of daily life instead of other platforms, they would constantly be practicing, a more civil way to have discourse with people. And that's what, I'm optimistic about, is that, as this kind of platform kind of takes hold at the university level and hopefully in the general public, in the near term, people will be able to have those conversations in a more civil way. And it just helps us all kind of become better people.
Yeah. And for our listeners too, I think it's important to say, like, civility doesn't necessarily mean you agree with everything.
Mm-hmm.
Civility truly means like you can discourse with someone, not agree with someone in a respectful way. I think that's really important for students and for adults to understand. Is sometimes you're in a sales management or a leadership role, or you're under someone who's your mentor or your boss, and you're really afraid to say, I don't agree with that. And you don't know how to, and I think it's important for people to understand that civility does not mean you are agreeable. Civility means you can disagree, and you can disagree with curiosity and respect. And I'd love to hear more about your insights on that, and just sort of like your skill set with that, and imparting that to students so that, they get it into their heads. Because it's a nice balance. You have to totally respect your mentors, but also you want to have clear boundaries. It's a hard balance, even as someone who's been in that, and you yourself, I'm sure, it's very, tricky skill set to incorporate.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, central to sales is negotiation. Most contracts that people enter into, are a blend of, something that both sides needs. It's not like a win-loss, kind of situation. So, negotiation is a perfect example of that, where you really have to, use your EI to, you're trying to always improve your position or your company's position, but at the same time, it can't be your way and not the other person's way. You have to kind of find that middle ground. And I think that's what, a lot of us today, people are moving away from that, right? Where people are becoming, I think, more black and white, and it's either my way or your way, but, nothing in the middle. And that's really what we're after, I think, with this push for civility and using, emotional intelligence and CivilTalk, is to get people to find that kind of common ground. And it's okay to agree to disagree, but it's about learning, right? first and foremost how the other person feels and why they feel the way they do, and then try to find that middle ground. And I think that's really core is understanding and be able to find that kind of, that ability to have that civil discourse and kind of meet in the middle. We need more of that.
Yeah, we need more of that in academia. I mean, it's a tough skill, again, to have.
Mm-hmm.
I think the 24-hour rule is so great. Truly, it's helped me so much too, whether it be with a parent over Thanksgiving, learning to bite the bullet and just come back later, or like just let it go,
Love that. You're right. Yeah, emotions play, such a huge part of this. I mean, emotional intelligence, right? It's in the name. It's all based on psychology. It's a lot of the research is based on how the brain works and how we are, operate as humans. And a lot of it is tied into emotions. So it really is about managing your emotions first and foremost, and, being able to not react to everything everyone says that we don't agree with, and finding a way to engage with people in a more civil way is what we're really trying to help people understand and, then apply and then make part of their lifestyle. And, we believe that, and, I definitely firmly believe it's really important. A lot of the work I've done in academia is around collaboration and working with different organizations. And, that's why EI is so central, because people in different organizations think differently. The cultures are different. And for any time you're trying to bring people together at the personal level or at the corporate level, it requires finding that common ground. And that's, what emotional intelligence really, centers on.
Yeah. I mean, this could be I talk to people about CivilTalk, and about a lot of people don't even know. I have on, and she's like this head surgeon, and I was talking to her about CivilTalk. She's like, we could use this at the hospital, and it's like, this CivilTalk, civility, social emotional learning is not within the ivory tower of academia, right? Yeah. It needs to be incorporated
everywhere,
and you need to be able to have conversations with your friends and family about this as well.
Absolutely. It's there are people, we teach, we're a professional school, we're a business school. We teach people skills, right? You want your accountant to understand accounting for sure. But if you talk to most people in corporate America, will tell you that the most important things are like critical thinking skills and communication skills. And so, being able to make good decisions, but also being able to work with other people and communicate effectively. That's really what separates everyone. It's not, doing the actual work is not the hard part. The hard part is getting other people to align with you and understanding what they're trying to accomplish. That, working in a team, that's the critical skill. And emotional intelligence is fundamental to being able to do that effectively.
Yeah, it truly involves, like you were saying earlier, one of your top three was self-reflection. And one of the great aspects of that is not transparency, it's authenticity. Having authenticity is so important, and that's a byproduct of self-reflection and self-awareness. And it's interesting how I graduated with a literature degree, and when I graduated, I just thought it was completely useless. And then as I got older, I was like, this really came in handy, because you're talking about critical thinking, and you really have to put yourself in a character's shoe to write a paper, right? And that has a certain amount of empathy, and you don't really realize that these skills creep into your into the fabric of who you are at that age. So a huge part of making this podcast is so students can have a resource and understand the importance of social emotional learning and emotional intelligence, and the importance of these classes. With any student and general public to sort of engage in social emotional learning as well, keeping this topic kind of at the forefront of genres. It can be whether we're talking about politics or movies or whatever it is, this topic really aligns with everything. So with that being said, I'd love to hear any last comments or statements you want to make before we end the show. and call it. Thank you so much for your time, by the way.
Oh, this has been a pleasure. I really appreciate connecting with you today. And yeah, I mean, I think we're at the beginning of a road, if you will. I think emotional intelligence is coming more mainstream. I hear people talking about it all the time now, whether it be corporate people or, reels I see online, famous leaders that you see doing shorts on it. They really are seeing it as the differentiator and the difference maker. And so I think it's we're onto something big here, and hopefully the next, over the next 5 to 10 years, hopefully, emotional intelligence will be core to, courses, but also this the general population realizing, hey, I really need to be more emotionally intelligent and be more civil with other people. And because I think, in this country, especially, things kind of ebb and flow. And I think we've hit a point, right, of incivility, and it will naturally come back, hopefully, to a more civil place. And I think that, the efforts by CivilTalk and others to help facilitate that is really important and will make a difference. So thanks for having me on today. I really appreciate it and enjoyed our conversation.
Hear, hear. All right. And to our listeners, thank you again so much, Professor Ryan. It truly was a pleasure. And to our listeners, I hope you found this conversation as enlightening as we did. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with others who might benefit from these discussions. Follow us on social media to stay updated on upcoming episodes and more ways to cultivate civility and emotional intelligence in both your personal and professional lives. Until next time, keep striving for civility and empathy in all that you do. Take care.
Take care.